The scene opens with a group of horse-drawn carriages rolling down the road. A blonde girl energetically asks her companion to look at her. She happily informs them that they share the same age of 12 years old. So, she asks who will be the younger sibling among them. The boy says that he does not care either way, so she can be the older sister if she wants. Unsatisfied, she complains that he is boring. They fall silent for a moment, then he says that she can be the younger sister. At this, the girl gasps and protests that she did not say that she wanted to be younger. The important thing to her is that they are going to be family from now on. The boy is visibly surprised, as he had not even considered such a thing. He is going to become a family with strangers now, but he too once had a family that he spent his life with. His name is Boris Gineman, and he is the second son of Jurgen Gineman, the lord of the Travashes Longford. 12 years ago, at the Gineman residence, young Master Boris was welcomed to the Gineman family in the middle of a funeral. It was a shame that there was only one beside him on the night that he was welcomed. The Ginemans are a very renowned martial household, and they were sure that he would grow to be a brave warrior too. He would eventually inherit the armor and sword passed down through the family. The treasures of the family are Winterer and Snowguard, and he will share these treasures with his brother, the young Master Yevgen. The missus of the house passed away, and the master might hate all second children of the world, but the speaker is sure that Boris' brother is a very kind boy who will shower him with love and affection. The speaker begs young Boris to survive, because the nation, Travashes, sees countless people die in the revolution each day. His uncle was kicked out of the family and now he dreams of the day he can get revenge. They might all lose their lives to the revolution, but even if a bloodbath were to occur in the family, or if someone were to go after the family treasure, the small baby Boris need not worry. This is because a survivor among them was sure to take revenge. The Ginesmans never forget love, kindness, and wrongs done to them, so the young Master Boris, the one to survive, must survive. He recalls a person telling him to survive, a person with long flowing blue hair. He tells our main guy to survive until the end in this painful world. The him that he chose must not die. On a rainy day, in the house of Gineman, Travash's territory, a nanny tells a story of a wraith that lurks near Lake Imura. Little Boris is told that he needs to remember her words, no matter what happens, and that he shall never go near that lake. He is the second son of the Gineman family. The wraith is visible from the estate at night, and especially during stormy nights like now. Boris listens in wonder as she further explains that the creature's eyes glow in the dark, waiting to feed on those who dare approach. That is why he must never go near Lake Imura. The next sunny day, he shares the gist of what his nurse said to his brother and mentions that everyone said the same thing. No matter what happens, he is not to go to Lake Imura and to beware of the red-eyed wraith that lives there. His brother tells him that he need not worry about things like that, because he will always be there for him. His brother's smile was especially bright that day, but it felt out of place to the young Boris. However, he smiled back and agreed with his brother. They played together, with his brother pretending that his hair was a nest. His brother pokes his side with a wooden sword and tells him that it is time to practice as promised. He energetically leaps to his feet with his wooden sword and lunges at his brother. His brother tells him to make sure that he is within range first, because he swings from too far away. They cross swords once again, and his brother encourages his next attempt. Boris is starting to improve and his brother praises his effort. Boris says he is coming for real and tells his brother to prepare himself. He lunges at his brother, who playfully screams and falls with his brother in his arms. Our main guy laughed and asked why he fell back, and Yevgen laughed that he was pushed first. His father watches from the window as they play, and his companion mentions that it seems like Yevgen adores his little brother, and his little brother loves him too. However, the master of the house is displeased. He is Jurgen Gineman, head of the Gineman family, and he thinks such behavior is pathetic for the family heir. He does not believe they have time to loiter around. Suddenly, he hears a strange and loud groan. Immediately he becomes alert. The children outside are still playing with their wooden swords, and Boris prepares to charge again. The odd feeling in his chest lingers, and he does not know why. His brother tells him to hold his sword firmly, and stares in surprise when the little guy runs at him. They cross wooden swords again, and his older brother praises him. Suddenly, he gasps that his younger brother is too close. He swings his sword, and Boris' eyes widen as the sword comes right at him. His brother cries out and apologizes for his mistake of hitting him in the eye. He promises not to do that again. It was the first time that the main guy felt the fear of possible death at another's hand. He closes his eyes with a small groan, and the servants call out to them. The servant has an urgent message for the brothers, and tells them not to return to the family estate. Yevgen asks what is going on, and the panting servant says that Vlado Gineman, the elder, has returned. Both brothers have apprehension on their faces. Unfortunately, the odd feeling that the main guy felt, although it was not something he could control, sometimes becomes active and becomes a form of foreboding. The sky above the house was dark and stormy, and a man stood in the front yard before a barking dog. He remarked that hardly much time had passed and it had already forgotten its old master. He called the dog a dumb fool as lightning struck the sky. The master of the house sits in his home office with a grave expression on his face, his eyes open, and he is ready to handle what is to come. His companion calls his attention and asks if they should let their guest inside. With a deep look in his eyes, the master gives his approval and the door opens. His feet are clad in brown boots, and he says that it has been a while. The master thinks that it is finally time to face his brother. Vlado Jineman is the younger brother of Jurkin, and he greets his brother. The master mentions that it has been 5 years since he kicked his brother out, and he is surprised to see him still alive. His brother laughs and asks if he is disappointed to see him here. He calls his brother mockingly with a dark expression on his face. Jurkin does not know why Vlado is here, but he wonders if his brother came all this way to die. Vlado remarks that not a single thing has changed about this place, and the only real difference would be that things look a little older. He asks his brother to offer himself and his people some drinks since they rushed there in half a day just to have a long conversation with him. 2 cups of refreshments are poured, and the brothers sit together at the same table. The younger brother takes a sip of his drink and asks if his elder recalls when they were young. They spared together in the Longrod field, just like Yevgen and Boris. Vlado can still remember the clashing of their swords. Back then, they would skip out on training and play around the hills, but the elder was scolded by their father for not behaving as he should as the eldest son. He can still recall Jurkin's back that bore the heavy load of the air. The master of the house asks what he wants, and the younger laughs that he is so impatient. So, he decides to get down to business as his brother wishes, and slams the cup to the table. As he already knows, the Prince-elect Khan, who is behind him, will become the chief elector in this time's election. When that happens, the master of the Jineman house, who is on the other Prince-elect's side, will become a thorn in the chief elector's side. He says he has returned to secure the family's survival, but his brother is not buying it and tells him to leave if he's just here to talk nonsense. The younger brother gets offended and says that the mansion does not belong only to the older. Their parents passed it down to both of them, and the master gritted his teeth. Jurkin yells that Vlado was the one who threw that away. Their sister died unfairly because of Vlado, and he asks if he has already forgotten about Yanishka. The younger laughs and tells the elder to think about it carefully, because he cannot see how this is his fault. The older yells that if it was not for the younger's filthy scheme, then their beautiful sister with golden hair would be alive along with her fiancé. However, the younger insists that back then, the one who did that to Yenny, the one who went crazy and killed her, was not him but his older brother. With anger, the older one grabs his cup and flings it at his brother, screaming about how he dared make such a ridiculous excuse in front of him. Even after so much time passed, he is still as awful as usual. The younger wipes the drink from his face and says he guessed the people of Travashes are all very stubborn. It is a household that is already split into many factions, and in such a household, his sons will likely not be different from the 2 of them. The master screams for his brother to get out, and the younger tells him to remember his words. He tells his older brother that this is his last chance, and since they are brothers, he comes to forget and forgive all his wrongdoings. Chief Elector Khan will also turn a blind eye to what he has done. With a wicked grin, he tells his brother all he has to do is hand over the Winterbottom kit. The master of the house draws his sword and points it at his brother, telling him once more to get out. He tells him to leave immediately, and that even if his head were to be split apart, he would give his brother nothing. His brother grins wickedly and remarks that Jurkin is as foolish as he thought. He turns to leave, saying they will see how long his brother can last. He promises to take everything from the master. Jurkin tells Tulk, his companion, to start the preparations. The master looks out of the window at the rain outside and declares that it is time to resist. Meanwhile, inside the manor, the children hurry after the manservant, Yevgen, with Boris in his arms. The older one asks about their father, and the servant replies that he is on the 2nd floor. Then the older son asks if the butler Tulk is downstairs already. The servant confirms that he has already gone to the training grounds and opens a door, telling the boys to move quickly. It is time to use the Winterbottom kit, and the younger looks to the elder with concern and worry. The Winterbottom kit is the armor stolen from murdering the territorial lord of another country and 99 enemies. The snow guard and the sword that was obtained from killing numerous enemies over 30 years ago, the Winterer. It is the treasure of the Jineman household that has been passed down through the generations, the winter equipment that only the strongest warrior can possess. Yevgen pushes a huge cupboard to reveal a hidden door in the wall. As centuries passed by, this equipment only remained as rumors, but now they are going into the hands of its master as the equipment of the household. The older boy reaches into the compartment and grabs the hilt of the shining white sword, while his younger brother watches in awe. One day, Yevgen was told that there was something he was to see, and he was asked to follow. Earlier that year, in the Jineman house, the young heir was led by his father to see something he must have already heard about. The family treasure that the boy's great-grandfather and his son obtained through defeating many enemies, Winterer and Snowguard. The 2 weapons shine with powerful light, and together they are called the Winterbottom kit. The young heir is surprised to see that it was really in their family, and the father notes that their silence was effective since his son was not sure that the weapons existed. His grandfather passed a piece of the special kit down to Jurkin and Vlado in hopes that they would work together. Unfortunately, he was mistaken. The kit is something that will only show its full power when used together. Yevgen will be 20 in that year, and he is expected to learn his role as the heir to the family. If danger befalls the family, then he must run away with the Winterbottom kit. The heir is horrified to hear that he is expected to run away alone. No matter what happens, he is expected to survive and protect the family heirloom, and the family will survive through him. Yevgen feels the pressure getting worse as his father tells him not to lose the kit no matter what. He promises to do as he is told, unaware that his little brother has followed and heard all that was said. Yet with no hesitation, the older boy shows the sword to his younger brother as soon as their father is not around. He tells him the name of the sword, Winterer, and that the armor is Snowguard. They are the family treasure, the Winterbottom kit. Little Boris stares at the weapons in amazement, and his older brother asks which he thinks looks better. He wonders if this is what his big brother received from his father, and says that since the armor is heavy, then the sword seems cooler. So, his older brother gives him the sword, and tells him that he will give it to his brother once he is old enough to swing a sword. For now, his younger brother can try holding it. The sword is heavier than expected and its great tip hits the floor with a clang. Our main guy admits that it seems the sword is too heavy for him, however, his brother is convinced that he can do it. He tells him that the Winterer is his sword. Since then, Yevgen told Boris that at every chance he got that the Winterer would be Boris' sword. Maybe because of his constant reminder, he has come to think of Winterer as his sword. However, he was just a child compared to his brother. The sword shall be for the heir, and there is no way it would belong to the younger brother. However, that night, his brother informed him that their uncle had started a rebellion, and that father must have foreseen this. They must do as they plan, but he tells his younger brother not to worry too much. However, Boris is worried about the rebellion. He had heard all about them from the butler, Tulk. A rebellion is something that happens within the family and it only has winners and losers. There is no right or wrong. This means that even with many dying, no one will be punished, nor will anyone acknowledge or cry for the dead. Our main guy is told, as a member of the Travashes, that he will understand when the time comes. Boris is worried as he recalls that no one will acknowledge or cry if someone dies. Yevgen tells him that he will borrow the sword for a bit, but his younger brother is already thinking, if someone can survive, the person that must survive must be the heir. So, he tells his brother that he does not have to return the sword because it belongs to the older, and their father gave it to the heir and not to the spare. The heir must survive, and he can only hope that the heir will cry for him. His brother falls silent at the look in his younger brother's eyes, and places a gentle hand on his shoulder. He says again that Winterer belongs to his younger brother, and that he will not borrow it without his permission. He also promises to return it once the rebellion is over. Boris points out that he cannot even hold the sword properly, and that last time, they needed to hold the sword together. However, Yevgen insists that while it may be heavy for now, he should not worry about it because he will do fine. He believes that his younger brother will be able to wield it, because he is a warrior. The older embraces the shocked younger brother, and he tells his brother that he has the name of a warrior. The younger is touched by his brother's words, then startled when they see the fire start in the distance. The rebellion is starting, and the rebels shout that the head of the Giantman family will change, and that his head has changed, as they raise their torches in the air. They scream for their enemies to surrender, and serve their name master in order to revive the Giantman family. The master watches their protest unfazed, and believes that those who would waver at such words are long gone. While things cannot be compared to their prime back when his father was around, he still has Giantman soldiers who swore their loyalty to the family. He declares that those who have dared to invade Longboard shall come to face the light. The rebels recognize him and raise the alarm that Jurkin Giantman is up on the terrace. The master shouts to ask if they are going to hide like cowards, then says he will light the entire area. He orders for the white flame to be raised, and his butler does accordingly, activating his magic. The white light illuminates the Giantman army that guards the home, and the light spreads through the lines of the rebels, and they scream as they feel attacked by magic fire. The Giantman men shout that they shall kill the dirty traitor Vlado. Meanwhile, the rebels, alarmed that the other side has a magician, want to run. Jurkin tells them to step forward, because the Giantman family will not fall to a bunch of ragtags. Suddenly, he groans as the floor seems to shake. He hears screams of fear and turns in horror to see that someone has summoned a draconic beast. The master of the Giantman family stares at the beast that stands taller than his home. It is summoned from the frozen realm, and it is called Krygl. Jurkin curses at them for daring to use a dirty trick in the battle against him. Travashes has around 3 people who can summon Krygl, which include Jongnal, the archmage of the chief electoral Khan. The master of the house is shocked to see that he is there, among the rebels. He cannot believe that Khan assigned Jongnal to his traitorous brother, which means Vlado's position is very secure right now. Everyone is ordered to get out of the mansion with maximum efficiency, and the second squad is asked to hold their positions. Krygl comes down, biting off one of the mansion's towers and sending the bricks crashing down. The people scream to see the tower collapsing, and evacuating is made the top priority. The second squad will hold out, so the people need to get out as soon as possible and come up with a plan. However, Jurkin halts his retreat in horror to see his 2 sons are still within the building. He snatches Boris away from Yevgen and tells his heir to flee by himself. The older one protests, but his father screams that it will be impossible for him to flee quickly if he is with a child. It is the heir's duty to protect their family's honor, and he should not have time for playing foolish games. He yells at his tearful older son to run quickly, even as his son looks with sorrow at his younger brother. The heir takes off by himself as his father commands, and the father drags the younger son away. Little Boris is led by his father and all the other servants through the collapsing mansion. His father said it would be impossible to escape with the child. He is only a burden to his brother, so he will stay with his father. Even in the last moments, Yevgen must survive to protect the family treasure, because the younger Boris believes that he cannot protect the family even if he was to survive. However, glancing back, he gets that strange foreboding feeling again. A bad feeling that something will happen to his older brother as he runs away. The monster continues to destroy the mansion and the houses around them, and the people run screaming. The fighting continues on the battlefield, with the two factions facing off with spears. Most of the people seem to have made it out, but the mansion will not survive. A great noise draws Boris' attention, and he turns in time to see his former home collapse in front of him. His father grits his teeth in rage and the little boy watches in horror. The master is enraged that his brother caused the destruction of his home. He also shouts that he will never forgive him. He orders his butler to check the status of the first and second squads, and his mage butler does as he is told. He sees that they are still holding their lines against the enemy squads, and reports that they are at a disadvantage since they can no longer use the mansion during their attack tactics. The master suggests that they attack the entrances on both sides of the mansion, and divide the remaining soldiers into two groups. The army shall hide in the bushes and wait for his command. His little son asks how they can triumph against the monster, and his father says that it is fine as long as they don't go to the mansion. The monster cannot touch the living in this world. Half of its body is in the other world. Boris stares in amazement and fear at the white monster while his father gives further instructions to the butler. His butler whistles up some more swirling magic that flies up to the moon while the soldiers wait in the bushes. Boris is commanded to follow slowly and then fall back. When the fight starts, he is to run straight to the field. His father tells him to run away, and he asks where he should go. His father falls silent before finally telling him to go to Lake Imura. The little boy is horrified, saying that the nanny told him about the evil spirit hiding there, and his father yells at him not to believe the words of an old maid, and that he is a man of the Giantman family, so he must act like one. Thanks to that stupid rumor, no one will go near it, so that is the safest place for his son to go. There will be 3 trees with black trunks near the lake. He is to hide there and his father will come to get him after the fight. Boris is hesitant, but his father does not have time, and is soon called by his butler. He commands that everyone immediately attack the east entrance, and the battle once again commences with warriors charging towards their foes. His father then turns to him and yells, asking him what he is waiting for. It is time for him to get up and run. So, Boris does as he is told, closing his eyes and gritting his teeth to prepare himself. He believes that his father must be right about the nanny making up that story as he runs without stopping. He runs to Lake Imura. The carnage of the battle continues as men fall by the sword during the battle between the two factions, and Kriegel rages in the background. The leader of the enemy army, Vlado, grins wickedly and tells his brother's men to come forth, because he shall be the one to cut them down. He steps into the battlefield and attacks with his sword outstretched, tearing through the bodies of his brother's men. He calls out to his brother, asking where he is hiding. He is furious, because he was treated like a criminal and driven out, while his brother claimed the family inheritance all for himself. He laughs that his brother is now hiding like a scared little rat. However, one of the soldiers yell out the location of Jurkin Giantman on the battlefield. The soldier shouts that he is right there, and Vlado turns with wicked glee on his face. It will not take him long to get to where his brother is, and he believes that this will be the day when he gets to trade Hargrun of the Dark Blade to be replaced by Winter of the Silver White. The orders given to the men are to strike down Jurkin Giantman, and they all rush to where he stands guarded by a circle of soldiers. He mutters that they are daring to invade his territory and slashes at his attackers with a mighty sword. He tells his enemies to come at him, for he is not afraid and will face them head-on. The mighty warrior in him will make them pay for their reckless bravery. However, his younger brother suddenly appears behind him, greeting him that they get to meet again. The younger brother sneakily stabs his older brother in the back, near his hip, and greets him with a mad and wicked look on his face. He yanks the sword out of the wound and the mighty Jurkin staggers. He growls in rage that his brother would attack with an ambush. However, his brother mocks him, saying that he is not what he used to be. He laughs that his older brother has gotten older, and stabs him again through the front at the other side of his hip. The master of the Giantman household coughs out blood, while cradled to his brother's shoulder. Tolk races to him, eager to help save his master. However, the younger brother laughs and declares that he will kill Tolk along with his older brother, before he can reach the mage. However, the mage casts a spell and a blinding light fills the area. The soldiers step back, and the younger brother has to use his cloak to shield himself when the spell is cast. They find a thick mist surrounding them, making it hard for them to see anything. The butler uses this opportunity to keep up his magic spell and retrieve his master. Vlado screams in rage when he sees they are gone and accuses them of running like cowards, shouting that they are pathetic. However, the butler succeeds in making his getaway and taking his master with him while their enemy screams in rage. Enraged, the evil brother orders that the men go find Jurkin immediately. Meanwhile, the youngest son of the Giantman household is still running. He recalls the place his father told him to go and recites the black trunk base over and over again as he runs. He pants and huffs. Finally, he arrives at the tree base and pauses to catch his breath. He tells himself that his father will come soon because he said that he would. He slides to sit at the foot of the tree and decides to wait there until his father arrives. Boris begins his long wait, believing that soon his father will arrive. He sits and waits for a while, then is overtaken by fear when he hears a noise. He trembles with his arms wrapping around his body and wonders if his father is here, or perhaps an otherworldly beast is about to appear near the place he was always told not to go. Suddenly, the noise stops and he is surprised. Then it starts up again and he gets scared once again. Something suddenly grabs him and he screams, kicking about as something long and red wraps itself around him. He opens his eyes and is horrified to see before him a big and ugly green monster, the evil spirit of the lake. Boris is horrified to see that his nursemaid was right, and wonders how his father did not know that there was a monster in the lake, a large green bug-eyed monster with long insect-like wings. The monster stares at him for a moment, and then the pointy end of the long red thing suddenly flies right at the young boy's face. The boy panics, screaming and crying that he does not want to die. He cries for his father and his brother when suddenly something snaps the red thing binding him and attacks the monster. The little boy lands on the floor with a thud and a groan, sitting up with fear when the red thing comes close once more. However, he sees a man standing in the forest and gasps, realizing that the man is the one who cut down the monster. The man walks towards the young boy, his shining weapon in hand, and stands before him, towering over the little scared child. It turns out to be his older brother Yevgen, and his brother shouts in horror, asking his younger brother why he is here. The little boy is confused at first and can only stare at his brother, but his brother quickly embraces him and pulls him in for a hug. The younger brother's eyes are wide with shock at being in his brother's arms. His brother scolds him that he could have died. The little boy cries and says that their father asked him to wait there, and the older is shocked that their father sent the little boy by himself. The younger brother asks why the older brother was in the forest at that point in time, especially after their father said that he had to protect the Winterbottom kit. At that question, the older brother went uncharacteristically silent. Finally, the older boy admitted that he does not agree with his father. He also does not believe that family is more important than the treasure. To the older boy, the treasure is of no use if they are all dead, and as he speaks, the younger boy stares at him in surprise. The older boy goes on to say that they cannot protect the treasure forever and that no one would outlive the treasure. The younger asks his older brother how he knew where to find him, and the older replies that he is his brother and that he should protect his younger brother no matter where he is. His little brother stares at him and calls out his name. Then his eyes widen when a bright light shines behind them. He asks his big brother the meaning behind that light, and his brother tells him to listen closely. He explains that their uncle is not the only enemy. Chief Elector Khan is also working with their uncle, and he is the one who lent him all the soldiers. He wants the Snow Guard and Winter, as well as the loyalty and cooperation of the Giantman family. In order for that to happen, their father has to die. Their father knew all this, that was why he made sure that his sons would escape. They both turn when the swirling light manifests before them and they call out for their father. Sure enough, Tulk appears, carrying their father with him. The older boy asks what happened, and the mage explains that the master got attacked by the Hargoon that their uncle wielded. The Hargoon, bestowed by Chief Elector Khan, possesses a strong poison that is resistant to healing. The mage's healing was useless against it. Then he turns and asks why the older son is not already long gone. Yevgen hesitates to answer that question while Boris hides behind him. The butler dismisses the children's worries and says it is fine, then asks the children if they are all right. The older asks about the bright light that came from the battlefield and then disappeared, especially since the light appeared near the mansion. It is believed that One Eye of Choir was activated since it is a spell that allows the user to see far. The Great Mage Jungle would be able to find even a needle in a haystack half a day away with that spell. Since they saw a flashing light, their location has already been exposed. The children ask what to do now, and the mage responds that they must wish that luck is on their side. The master of the house finally gives a command and tells them to go. They are surprised to hear him speak, and his butler helps to steady him. Following the master's orders, the butler mage opens a portal and tells the heir to go while he still can. If he understands the will of his father to protect the family and the treasures, then he must go. A horse gallops quickly, and many horses move together as a unit, galloping quickly through the forests. Vlado leads this group of riders, of course, and curses the meddling kids like a Scooby-Doo villain. He cannot believe that they went to Lake Imura. The old fear of the Longored people and a banned place is what Lake Imura is, yet he has a flashback of visiting the forest area with his older brother and their sister during a happier time. Lake Imura ended up becoming the terrible place that took the life of their only sister, sending the maid screaming and a blonde girl going mad. During a flashback, someone asks another to guess who. Tiny hands cover the face of a small blonde girl, and she guesses that her second oldest brother is covering her eyes with his hands. It was the correct guess and the siblings smiled together. Jurkin, Vlado and their sister Yenny used to be very close and they would run in the tall grass, playing with each other, with their sister asking her brothers to slow down and stop. She was the only person that Uncle Vlad cared about in their household, a small sweet girl that would sometimes be found asleep in odd places. She was the only one who viewed him and his older brother as equals, and always wanted them to make up with each other after every fight. For her to leave like that was too much for him, and he wonders how long this nightmare will have a hold on him. He recalled yelling at his older brother and asking him if he was out of his mind for sending their dear sister, Yenny, to a family they did not approve of. Jurkin insisted that while the groom was from another faction, their sister had been the one to choose and there was nothing they could do except to wish her happiness. However, the younger brother could not accept that conclusion. He could not wish his sister happiness and thought there was only one method to fix the problem. He lied to her and told her that her fiancé was going to Lake Imura. She was horrified to hear of this and raced away to stop him from going to that place. Vlado was relieved to think that he had kept them apart since she rushed to the lake. He decided that it would be better for her to get kidnapped by his subordinate there. He was not ready to send her away. That was what he had planned, but things haven't worked out the way he had expected. The maids in the gardens dropped their baskets in horror when Yenny returned. Her mouth gaped and she cried and grabbed at her chest like a beast and not a girl. He stared in horror to see what she had become because of an evil lake spirit. He did not understand what happened because she was supposed to be captured by his subordinate waiting on the road. She should not have even made it close to the lake. Jurkin pushed him aside and Vlado panicked, saying that they needed to call a medic. However, the hardened master of the house replied that she no longer belonged to this world. To the younger brother's horror, his older brother glared and said that even if he did not agree with her engagement, he had done something that should never have been done. The younger cried that he did not know that this would happen. He had never thought that their cowardly little sister would make it all the way to the evil lake. He also had no idea that the evil spirits of the lake were real. His brother tells him that his excuses hold no value to him since his younger brother will no longer be recognized as a giant man. The younger brother is horrified and dragged away as the master commands everyone to return to the estate. The younger one cries out in question, asking what his brother is going to do. His brother pulls out his sword, and the younger panics even more, screaming that he can fix this. However, his brother replies that insanity due to an evil spirit can only be cured by death. Vlado screams and cries, shouting at the servants to let him go as his brother advances on his sister. He cries out with tears in his eyes, crying out her name, but it is much too late. In the present day, Vlado commands that they search Lake Imura thoroughly, and the men begin their suicidal search. Suddenly, they hear a noise and turn in surprise to see bent hands digging through muddy waters. Charging right at them is a pack of evil spirits and monsters. The men scream in fear and run, even as the younger brother shouts that they are pathetic cowards. He yells that they dare disobey his orders. He curses as he fights the attacking corpses that keep endlessly crawling out. He can smell the disgusting odor of the accursed Lake Imura. It would be a lie if he said he was not scared, but if he could defeat Jurkin, then he would fight as many monsters and spirits as it takes. He will defeat all the disgusting spirits for a chance to defeat his brother. Meanwhile, the mage tells Yevgen that it is time to go. He must understand his father's wishes and protect the family and the heirloom. Their enemies had already gotten close and they would soon get discovered. However, the older brother declares that he will not leave. He will remain to protect his father and his younger sibling. The butler warns him that his uncle is coming and they will soon have to encounter the worst moment. However, the heir replies that the family heirloom is protected so that it can be used in the worst moments. His father has what he wants, but he also has his own desires. He asks his younger brother if he understands, and the little boy hesitates. All of his life he has been taught one thing by his father and he believed that his father's words were correct and the law. But now his brother, who he admires so much, was saying something completely different. Deep down inside, a small part of him hated and envied his brother, but he also had no plans of surviving by himself in a world without his brother or his father. His older brother smiles at him and says they shall think of it as glorious to die together by their own choices. Boris stares at him in shock. Tulk says he will take the lead until he dies. None of the children are allowed to die. When it comes to the heir's turn to face his uncle, he says that he will not back down. Now, the younger brother is starting to understand why in his brother's eyes, which were unusually blue, and his brother's unusually bright smile, there was always a strange premonition. As they trudge closer and closer to the sparkling waters of Lake Imura, the butler informs his master that they have finally made it. Jurkin looks to the waters and thinks to himself that their sister must be in there somewhere, caught by an evil spirit, never to be consoled. He calls out her name and the evil uncle appears, mockingly saying that he is only just now searching for their sister, after abandoning her without even a grave. He further says that she must be happy to see him, saying that her older brother who stabbed her in the heart has finally come. Jurkin says that Vlado will never acknowledge his wrongdoings, and he asks if his older brother has finally come to ask their sister for forgiveness. To do that, they are both too late. Jurkin responds as he charges at his brother with a sword. Vlado replies that they shall now resolve the age-old grudge until the red-eyed evil spirit appears. The two brothers fight, their swords clashing as the older curses at the younger brother. He saved his younger brother's life, but he still is unaware of his sins. He used his sharp tongue to turn their sister into an unjustly wronged corpse, like those writhing lake monsters. The younger brother screams in rage that his brother is still blaming him for that, as their swords once again meet in combat. The younger screams that the one who took their sister's life was the older brother, so they shall see this to the end right here until the red-eyed spirit appears. With rage and hate boiling in their hearts, they fight each other, their swords meeting in a dangerous dance of death. Meanwhile, the sons, Yevgen and Boris, face off against the monsters from the woods. Yevgen tells his younger brother to listen to him, and that the red-eyed spirit took away their aunt. He wonders if he can protect his brother if they show up, but he insists that he must fight the monsters away with the power of the Snow Guard and the Winterer. Listening to his brother, the younger cries out and asks if his brother killed a wraith and not the evil spirit of the forest. However, his brother cannot hear him because he is sweating and shaking with fear. Even the hands that hold the sword do not stop trembling. So, the younger brother takes a deep breath, acknowledging that their father was right. The Winterbottom kid is only strong if used together by one person, and the heir needs to stay alive to protect the heirloom. Blocking the first attack is something that the younger brother believes he can do. If the evil spirit appears, then he will block it. His brother must survive until the end. They sense something and the younger looks up with a gasp. He realizes that the Snow Guard is glowing. The older brother steels himself and announces that the monster is here. A bright red light comes forth from the darkness, and the area is flooded with bright white light until the younger brother can see nothing else. He looks around in fear and surprise, asking what happened and calling for his brother. He gets no reply, but the world around him becomes soaked in red. He turns in fear as a demented demonic laugh starts to echo around him. Its laughter was like something that crawled up from the pits of the underworld. The creature calls him a beautiful child, as the huge red eyes fix on him and stare into his soul. Boris screams in terror, sitting up with a gasp of horror. He finds himself sitting on a glassy plain where a beautiful forest stretches on for miles. He does not recognize his surroundings, but his brother calls to him and waves his hands in greeting. His brother notes that he is awake with a smile on his face, and asks him to drink some water that he fetched from nearby. His brother asks what is wrong and why he is making such a shocked and confused expression. He asks his little brother if he had a nightmare or something similar. However, his brother races to him and grabs him in a tight hug. He cries with joy, knocking the bowl of water out of Yevgen's hand as he does. They both fall over and he cries with relief, thinking everything has just been a bad dream. His older brother smiles kindly and says that he is his brother. However, the younger one knows that something is weird. His eyes snap open and he recalls that he was definitely at Lake Imura. Father was fighting their uncle, while he and his brother fought against the monsters and evil spirits. He pauses as he tries to remember exactly what he and his brother were doing, and who they were fighting. He frowns as he thinks. While in the beautiful forest, his brother remarks that he must get his sibling more water. He asks his big brother where they are, and his brother replies that they are in the north of the Longboard. Had a plateau in the territory of the Gurin family. They rode a horse to get there, and Boris slept through the entire journey. Then, the younger brother asks about the whereabouts of their father. With a smile on his face, the older brother remarks that their father went to some other place. The situation got messed up, so everyone got scattered. The younger asks how they can find their father now. However, the older brother tells him not to worry, that the butler is going to contact them soon by using magic. The younger still asks what they should do, and the older replies that they should meet their great-aunt. The March Medicine faction she is in does not have a bad relationship with their father. They could also go in the direction of Elector Katsuya, who their father serves. Boris listens attentively as his brother speaks, and mulls over everything that his brother has said. Then he asks if they have to go anywhere. Instead of begging strangers for help, they could just live like commoners. His older brother laughed and said he had no idea how to live like one since he has always lived with the help of many people. It has been a bad year, so public sentiment towards nobles will not be good. Still, the younger brother believes that since their father will contact them soon, then until that time they should live quietly. Suddenly his stomach growls with hunger, and his older brother laughs in amusement. He suggests that they should at least fill their stomachs at a nearby village. They quickly locate a nice boisterous village with laughing people, enjoying the evening. They greet as they enter a simple inn, and Yevgen nervously asks for a room with his brother hiding behind him. The innkeeper lady smiles in amusement and charges them 10 elso. Nervously, the older brother sets a gold coin on the table and she grins because she had a hunch that he looked like a rich young master. She laughs that someone so young carries such a heavy amount around. Paying with a piece of gold is abnormal around these parts. The people around whisper in amusement, wondering why rich people would come to a place like this and wonder if they just came to see what a commoner's bar looks like. The keeper gives the boys a key and asks what they would like to eat for dinner and tomorrow's breakfast. Yevgen says that they will take whatever she has to offer, and she laughs because she thinks that precious people of their caliber would not eat anything common. Looking around, Boris can immediately sense the tension in the room, and it unnerves his brother as well. He suggests that they leave, and Boris stares in horror at the people who laugh at them, saying they have no clue what goes on in the world. They laugh that they should only be eating baby food and that they look like they only just started walking. They also laugh and ask why they do not both go home and find something more to their taste. Their laughter is one mockery after another. Someone then apologizes for the long wait and slams a bowl of food in front of them. Laughing, the men ask them to rate the food, and Boris has to fight the urge to throw up because presented to them is a bowl of worms, and he asks if this is enough for them. The boy screams, falling on his ass as he backs away from the food before him, while the laughter continues. The people around laugh mockingly at him and ask what is wrong, telling him to hurry and eat the food. They also say he should try the inn special, which is the bowl of worms, since it looks like something the young masters have never eaten before. They laugh and suggest that perhaps he does not know how to eat it, so they should teach him the right way. Another man leers at Yevgen and says to just let him know if he wants to learn. But the older boy suddenly responds that he does in fact want to learn, much to the man's surprise. With an icy glare, he turns to the man who mocks them and asks him to eat the bowl of food. Nervous, the man laughs and asks the people around if they heard that. He laughs that the boys want him to try a bite first, and he asks what he is to do in that situation, since he does not think he is hungry enough to eat someone else's food. However, the air is not playing around, and before the man can make any more mockery, a hand reaches for him and Yevgen shoves his face into the table. The boy insists that since the food is a speciality, the man should not hesitate. He invites the man mocking them to join him at this table and to eat the bowl of worms. The man cries for the air to get his hands off him, and cries in fear that he will actually be forced to eat the worms, especially when Yevgen spoons out some. He cries an apology, asking if the air can hear his apology. Boris watches in horror and calls out his brother's name, and when he does, his brother draws to a halt. The air turns slowly to where his brother stands and stares at him with eyes colder than ice. Then he tells the villager to be thankful, that he is not that strong-hearted to force-feed others a spoonful of bugs. He lets the mocking man go and decides that they will eat later. Then he takes his brother and turns to leave while the man seethes with rage. The other people at the inn, who have suddenly found their courage, shout after him, demanding where he is going as they look ready to fight. So, the air turns and punches back the one that charged at him with a wooden club. The fallen man calls him a cheeky jerk, and that he will make sure he learns his lesson. The older noble wonders if he should draw the winter, but knows that would mean he would really have to hurt everyone there. In that case, he picks up a bar stool and flings it at his attackers. The other customers are furious and call the air an idiot, and they all rush at him with anger. Their attacks are more than he can deflect without a weapon, and the older noble groans in pain. Suddenly, he hears his brother call out, and the air's eyes widen in horror to see his younger brother being held hostage by some of the men who grab him by his hair. The men smile wickedly as they grab both of them and force them on their knees. They tell the boys that they should have been nice from the start, and the older brother curses at them and calls them cowards. The man who he spared laughs and says that they caused such a scene in front of a magnificent feast because they did not learn their table manners, and he approaches with the bowl of worms. He then calls to little Boris and says that he will take the chance to teach the boy some manners. He even offers to personally teach the little boy as they grab his face and bring the bowl of worms before him. The older brother shouts for them to stop and tells them not to bully a child. However, the wicked man laughs and says that the heir cares so much for his brother, so he asks if the older will eat the bugs for the younger. Yevgen immediately agrees to eat the bugs, and the people laugh at him, saying they cannot believe his pride. The man says that if he wants it so badly, then he has no choice but to give the boy the worms, and asks him to try a bite. If the older brother resists, his younger brother will be force-fed instead, and they press the spoon of worms against his cheek. With an icy glare of hatred, the heir opens his mouth and eats the spoon of worms while looking at the hateful man the entire time. The man steps back in horror, and even the villagers gasp in surprise to see that he ate the bugs. The little brother calls out to his older brother with concern, but the older swallows anyway. Then he introduces himself as Yevgen Gineman. He is the eldest son of Jurkin Gineman, the Lord of Longord, and as he speaks, the men who had been laughing now look at them with fear. He then officially challenges the man who mocked them to a duel. The people are surprised and horrified to hear that he is the son of the Lord of Longord. They are also shocked to hear that he truly is a young master, and everything has escalated into a big problem. He demands that the man who mocked them reveal his identity. The man nervously confesses that he is Jit Pylon, and then the heir tells him that he is going to kill him now. The man is afraid, but the heir will give him a chance to redeem himself. During the duel, he expects Jit to admit defeat and lay face down on the ground. Only then will he be spared. If he resists, then he swears on his family name that he will make the man before him consume every last drop left in that bowl of worms. The people watch with fear in their eyes, and Boris watches with concern. Although the young boy has seen his big brother wield a sword before, he has never seen him in a duel. Yevgen looks like a completely different person, as he asks his opponent to draw his sword. The man curses, wondering if the boy will actually kill him. He stares in shock and the people gasp when the heir pulls out the winterer. One of them has heard of the sword before. Somewhere in the world, there exists a sword of winter, and they wonder if that is the sword they see before them now. Jit panics to think that the rumor turned out to be true, and that it would be too risky for him to fight head-on. Since things have come to this, he must strike first. So, he runs at the boy with his sword raised, but the heir easily blocks the blow of the man's sword. He is shocked that the boy is so strong, and Yevgen's icy glare remains. He pushes the man back with his sword, and the man groans. The heir raises his glowing sword again as his opponent watches in fear, and he swings the beautiful sword, slicing the man's weapon in two. The man stares in horror at his broken weapon, and the people gasp in awe. They marvel that the man's sword got cut suddenly, and wonder how the boy could do such a thing. Even the younger noble is impressed. The man falls to the floor, shaking as he stares at his broken weapon. The heir declares that it is over, and raises his sword to slice off the man's head. In terror, the man's eyes widen and he screams out in plea. His head hits the floor and he cries out for mercy, lying prostrate before the heir. The boy asks if he is accepting defeat as the man begs before him, and the man screams that of course, he will accept defeat, without hesitation. So, Yevgen demands that he does what he asks him to do, and the man hesitates as humiliation floods him. The heir of the Giantman household will not make his demand twice, and the defeated man takes up the spoon of worms and forces it into his mouth. He coughs and spits and chokes with disgust, falling at the heir's feet after he manages to finish the entire bowl. Boris stares in pity and shock at the coughing and groaning man. His brother calls out to him and says that it is time for them to leave. So, they leave and light up a candle in the room that they acquire. Then the younger calls out to the older, and the older responds with a smile. He asks the little boy if he is concerned about something, and tells him that he can tell his brother anything. So, the little boy admits that he is glad that his big brother is alright, and he is glad that he beat that awful man. But during the entire fight, he felt like his brother was somewhat different from the one he used to know. It was not that his big brother did something wrong, and there was no other choice but to respond like that. Had their father been around, he would surely have praised the older boy, so the younger feels he should also support his brother, despite his reservations. However, his brother says no, because his younger brother saw the situation correctly, and he smiles, saying that no one knows him the way his younger brother knows him. He tells his brother that he has now realized that their father was right. He will speak on their father's behalf, and tells the little boy that he must not let his heart soften with sympathy. If their older brother could take care of the younger forever, then he would ensure that his younger brother would always have the luxury of a kind heart. However, he cannot stay by his side forever, and his little brother has his own path to walk. In order to find this path, he must become stronger, and he must harden himself. If he cannot become the rock, then he should become a clam, and close himself so that others cannot see the beautiful gem that he bears on the inside. The older boy asks his younger brother if he gets it, because he must quickly understand that the world will not leave him to be happy. The younger asks if his brother has decided to become the clam, and his brother responds that he is correct. The younger acknowledges his brother's response, and wonders if his brother said all that because he was afraid that his younger brother would become weak. There are only two of them now, since their father and the troops are not here. The heir says that it is time for them to get some sleep, but they should not take off the armor, since they do not know who might sneak in. He will stand guard, so he asks his younger brother to sleep first. Then, he will wake him up at midnight, and he wishes his younger brother a good night. The moon shines brightly in the sky over the dark woods, when Boris' eyes snap open. He sees his brother sitting before his bed, with the winterer propped on his shoulder. He wonders if it is not midnight yet, then his eyes widen in horror when he sees the tears falling down his brother's face. He can hear his big brother crying, and wonders if he is dreaming, or if his big brother is actually crying. Tears beat at his own eyes, and he wonders if he should comfort him, but he cannot bring himself to speak in this situation. Instead, he rolls over and pretends to be asleep, so that his brother can have his moment to himself. However, the younger boy cries as well, and decides that he will leave his brother be, since he said that he wanted to be a clam. The next day, they journey together, with the younger riding on the horse while the elder walks beside him. Yevgen walks quietly, and Boris rides quietly, neither saying anything for a while. As they walk, the younger recalls his older brother's tears. He had never seen that side of his brother before, and he wondered if he ought to say something. So, he speaks and asks his brother the name of the flower beside them. His brother replies that it is a cornflower without much enthusiasm. In the past, his brother would animatedly tell him facts or stories about the flowers, and he asked if his big brother had forgotten all about the stories he used to tell him. The older mumbles that he guesses so, and they fall silent once again. Soon, the evening comes, and the horse draws to a halt, as Yevgen mumbles that he does not see the town, so they will have to camp out tonight. So, they light a fire and set up camp while the horse grazes beside them. The brothers sit in silence, with Boris cradling his small sword. Finally, his older brother calls his name and tells him to grab his sword. Yevgen gets to his feet and calls out into the bushes, saying someone followed them all the way here yet still chooses to hide like a coward. With that many people on their side, he doubts there is any need to hide, and their stalkers finally make themselves known, calling the boy an arrogant brat. The lead man tells his men to surround them, and Boris turns alarmed when the rope of their horse is cut and the animal runs away. The older boy notes that their attackers have a lot of subordinates to protect them, and recognizes Jit among them. One of the other men laughs and says they are not here to help the disgraced man, and that the young boy has not yet grasped the situation. They have come for the winter which his family hid away for years. It was as Yevgen expected. It could not be helped since it was an honorable fight, but it can be considered a mistake that he revealed his name. The lead bandit asks what his men are standing around for, and tells them to grab the sword. The men all charge for him, and the heir braces himself for the attack. Their swords meet in combat and begin a dance for dominance and victory. Though pushed back, the heir tells them that this is not a sword that they can dream of taking, and he parries them away. The men fall back, and another praises the boy's skill. However, he has an attack that he believes the boy will not be able to dodge and races for him. The heir prepares himself, but is immediately distracted by his brother calling out for him to watch out. In the moment, a chain wraps around the winterer in his hand. The man with the chain laughs and says that the heir is skilled for a kid. But it is all over now. The man says that the heir will not be able to use any of his strength in this state, but stops in shock when Yevgen refuses to let go of the bound sword and instead raises it like a joint weapon. His grip on the sword handle tightens, and he smashes through the chain with one swing. The winterer floods the area with a bright light and the attackers scream and cover their eyes. The iron chains exploded, and one of the men says it is an honor to witness what he has only heard about in rumors. The legendary power that cools the materials it touches to extremely cold temperatures and shatters them into pieces. The winter is frozen break. Just looking at it is making the bandit's mouth water, and he tells the heir that he is very skilled. However, he asks if he would be able to fight the same if there was a hole in his brother's torso, and he looms over the younger noble. The wicked man says that he thinks it is a bit too early for the child to die, and they both stare in shock, wondering when he got to Boris's side. All their movements are exposed like this, and it would not be hard to get through them on his own. But the heir wants to protect his brother. However, the younger noble remarks that 12 years is not a short time, much to his brother's shock, and the men laugh at what he is saying. However, the younger shouts that it means that he knows when he needs to die, and that he will not die to their swords. The man laughs in annoyance and says that they shall see if that is true. He swings his mighty axe, and the younger noble readies himself for the attack. Yevgen screams in horror as the wicked axe swinger gleefully says that the younger boy should resent himself for his arrogance. Yevgen runs at his brother in a really stupid display of brotherly love, but before either of them can regret that, an arrow buries itself in the neck of the axe swinger. The brothers stare in shock, the older's arm wrapping around his younger brother as the blood splatters from the wound. The man's body falls to the ground with a sudden thud, and the men around cry out with shock, calling out for their captain and wondering where the arrow came from. Soon, more arrows come thundering down, and Yevgen wraps his arms around Boris to protect him from the onslaught as the men around them scream. The men run, screaming that it is an ambush, and the heir wonders who is shooting those arrows. Someone appears and tells the heir that he fought well. They look up to see a group of shady-looking men with hoods. The heir pushes his younger brother behind him and asks of the identity of the hooded figures before them, and they say that they are his saviors, and that he can be a little nicer. The heir replies that if they expect nothing back in return, then he thanks them, and his saviors laugh. They ask if he could even offer them anything as they gather near the campfire, but the heir is wary that the people who almost killed them were killed in a flash by these people. Those four around their fire are very skilled, and he wonders if they are allies or much stronger enemies. One of the hooded men remarks that he looks like the son of a wealthy man out on a tour, and asks if they would have anything for them. However, they are satisfied with just borrowing the campfire. Yevgen stares silently, and then thanks them for their help, while also acknowledging their skill. The four drop their hoods and introduce themselves. Among them is Wilkamd, Jokwin no surname, Ramavak Jol, who is also called Ramavak of Bolt, and Janaka Goth, the only lady amongst them, who is called Jani or Nika. Yevgen prepares to introduce themselves, then hesitates when he recalls how they got in trouble the last time. Ramavak notes that they do not trust them yet, and says that it happens. He also says that they will leave if they make the boys feel uncomfortable. The boys exchange glances, and instead tell the four to stay and rest at their camp. The fire burns brightly as the two tired children stare blankly into its warmth, and the other four stare blankly at them. Finally, someone throws an apple at Boris. It was Jenny, and he stares at her. She smiles, noting that he does not eat it right away, so she says that he is not a baby. It is also not poison, so he does not have to worry. She asks the heir if Boris is his brother, and mentions that he is a bit young to be wandering the wastelands, as the little boy cutely munches on his apple. She says that they go around taking jobs for money, and they sometimes go to a place for a job too if it offers them enough money. She asks Yevgen if he has heard of the mortal land, and he recognizes it. She takes a smoke, and says that it is where Ganapali was a long time ago, the magic kingdom so prosperous that all pillars were wrapped in gold, and jewels lined the ground. Now, there is nothing left of them because of war, and it is now a great wasteland filled with resentful spirits and the undead. The mortal lands is a place where people go in alive and come back dead. The group sit around the warmth of the campfire and Janny asks if the story about the mortal land is surprising. She can tell that the children are imagining all kinds of horrifying things just by their expressions. The older brother admits that it is unbelievable that they made it out of there alive, since the mortal lands is not a place where people can casually enter and leave. That is why it is called mortal. Romanov laughs and tells him to look at the spear on the bolt. There was something on there, and he told the boys to be careful not to touch it, for it was a deadly poison, strong enough to kill a ghost. However, Janny tells his colleague to stop scaring the boys, and admits that they have not been to the real Gallipoli. They have only wandered around the place and brought back the things that the ghosts were wearing. Then she asks them if they want to see something interesting, and holds up a gold band before them. It is beautiful and etched with figures around it. She tosses the band to the younger brother, who catches it and marvels at the small figures carved into the band's side. The images are of many people dancing, and it is really shiny and well drawn. He had never seen the Golden City, but it felt like it was right in front of him just looking at the pretty bangle. He can imagine the dust of the sand shining under the sun, and the golden pillars standing tall, and the roof of the place decorated with rubies. It is amazing, and he can feel something strange. Later, as the sun is rising, they reach an inn and open the door. The innkeeper greets them and is surprised to see the group troop in. He was wondering who would arrive so early in the morning and recognizes the group of 4, noting that they look very tired. Janny just laughs that there were some troubles and they could not camp out. So, they march through the night and the boys followed them because they did not want to sleep next to corpses. She throws them a key and tells them that they must be tired, so they should get some rest. He thanks her, and the men wave at them, telling them to get some rest, and they are relieved that they can finally get some good sleep. Boris says it was so tiring walking through the night, and asks if he is about to pass out because he is so relaxed. His brother smiles and says that they can take a good rest today, so they will go to sleep. There should be no one chasing them around anymore. As they hold hands and walk together, the younger noble remembers a time when he was younger, playing with toys in the garden of their home. He looked up when his name was called and saw his uncle standing before him. However, he did not know the man's identity and asked who he was. His uncle introduced himself and asked if he was playing alone. He mocked the little boy, saying that was no fun and that he could show him what real fun looked like. The boy curiously asked how, and his uncle picked him up and raised him in the air, much to the boy's delight. The little boy laughs with joy, but suddenly, his uncle's face turns wicked and menacing as he says that someone will never forget it. His uncle has started to wonder what face that person will make, and he swivels and starts walking towards the well. The little boy is shocked and suddenly scared, calling out for his uncle and crying for him to let go. However, his wicked uncle holds him over the well's opening, and Boris cries out in fear as his uncle leers menacingly. He screams as his uncle drops him and wakes up with a gasp from the nightmare. Boris opens his eyes to see that his hands have been tied behind his back and that his brother has been tied up similarly. Yevgen acknowledges that the little boy is awake. The little boy asks his brother where they are, and the guy only responds that they need to escape quickly because the winter is missing. The younger boy is horrified and asks who could have taken it, and his older brother laughs, much to the younger's confusion. The boy bows his head and laughs madly, saying that it is grand and that they are awesome. He's of course talking about the situation and the state that they have found themselves in. He says that he is also just a kid that does not know the world. However, he hopes that his brother will not be like him when he reaches his age, and that he is not taken for a fool like himself. All the things that their father should have taught the little fella, he will start teaching them to his sibling from now on. And so, with a rather dark look in his eyes, he tells the tiny bugger that they should go to pay back as much as they received. Looks like something has finally snapped inside the big one's mind, and it's time for the siblings to retaliate. I look forward to seeing what they plan on doing next, and am pleasantly optimistic towards the future development of this story. I hope you guys are feeling the same, and would wait for the next long installment where I cover the remaining story. Stay tuned as usual, and I'll see you guys very soon. Until next time.